Okay, so we're recording, and so, all right, folks, welcome to the first episode of the MILPA show, and thank you for being here, and welcome Xago from Backtune 12. Thank you for being here as well, sharing space with us. And before we get into it, I'm going to pass it on over to my co-host, Arturo Munoz, for a welcome.
Sí, muchas gracias. And again, is the first episode, so there's going to be a lot of great content to be provided in the future. So y'all be, for sure tune in to the rest of the episodes. Pero ahorita, I want to give Chavo the platform to, talk about who he is, the amazing things that he's doing within the community, and just what makes him him. Chavo is someone that y'all would definitely want to get to know, especially if you're like in the region of the Monterey County. So Chavo, mind introducing yourself real quick?
Sure. Hey, thank you. Saludos a todos out there. Rosaura, Arturo, really grateful to be on this platform right now with you all, this space, this virtual space. Like Arturo mentioned, I'm from Backtune 12, artistic director. We've been around since 1997 as just some homies, right? Like just youngsters that love to do Chicano Theater. And as you know, like Chicano Theater is that's our tool for organizing. That's been a tool, right, for us. Our stories, how we've pretty much just what could you say, like do what we could do with what we got. It's a estilo rascuachi basically. And that's a definition that I've learned as a Chicano. It's a style, it's an application, rascuachismo. Using what we got to make things happen, right? And, my dad would call it el estilo mexicano, right? Ahorita vamos a arreglarlo, estilo mexicano, which meant like whatever we can use, man. It wasn't gonna be the official way to fix things, but it was definitely going to get stuff started, and Chicano Theater is like, I guess we could say like, I have a description right here. Well, basically it kind of comes down to 5 points. The acto, and this is all like established by El Teatro Campesino, Luis Valdez, in the struggle with that began with the farm workers, the farm worker movement of 1965. And they saw firsthand, how art could really like move the message, in this case, the performing art of theater, and, but there was, we all have this idea of theater, like, you go see a play, you know what I mean? Like, we all get in, we all go together, go buy a ticket, go park, we park our car, buy a ticket, go and sit down in a theater, a dark theater, and, watch a play, that growing up, the Western idea of theater, was like, oh, we're going to go see people act a story. And for me, it wasn't introduced to me as, it wasn't introduced to me as, as something that came from, something that came from us, right? Although theater is, we live theater all, and when I say us, I mean raza, right? Like our families, our neighborhood. But to realize that we're always doing theater, we're kind of in the story, we're a part of a cast of like some pretty awesome characters, our whole family, everybody on the block, in the barrio, right? Like in the apartamentos, right there, either next door, or across the street from you. There's a style of theater. There's a style of performance that comes from us, and my experience with so-called professional, or not professional, but like the traditional theater, didn't have any of our faces, right? Didn't have any of our like our stories, right? Didn't have any of that. For me, it was like a theater that was white, and had nothing to do with with my world, you know. But it felt like the world to be in. It was presented as like, this is the standard. This is what you have to be in order to succeed in this, in the industry. If you wanted to make a living out of being a theater artist, you know, you had to abide by some very white standards, you know, Euro-American standards of what traditional theater is. And I do recall, like, there was a moment, like, right after, like right in my high school, my senior year in high school, that I realized, like, oh man, I'm not gonna, like, right before I graduate, I'm not gonna get a job doing this, you know. This is, now, keep in mind, granted, this is 1990, all right? This is 30 years ago, guys. You know, and thinking, like, you know, like, I'm looking at television, I'm looking at films, and I'm like saying, like, man, none of this. Like, this is whack. I'm not gonna get a job doing this, you know. I was like, do I really want to do this? You know, like, am I really committed to this? And there was nobody around to really kind of, you know, to tell me, yeah, man, you know, follow your dreams, you know. There was none of that until I discovered Teatro Campesino. And what they introduced to me wasn't just a dream, but myself in la quech. That my audience is the most important audience, and you serve these audience. You got to commit to this audience, and that audience, you know, are your immediate family members, you know, tíos, tías, you know, primos, primas, abuelitos. You know, you know, and I say that, but it's like, I'm still working on that. I'm still working on making my immediate audience my family. It's a lifelong like job to get to that thing.
And even reflecting on what you're saying, it sounds like tools like teatro, we need to use these tools to our benefit, for the benefit of our people, right? And as you're saying, you know, my brother, he did theater arts at San Francisco, and a lot of the folks there, I guess there was diversity in some ways, but a lot of the storytelling wasn't really connected to the struggle of our people, and we need that. We need to see ourselves reflected in that. And so I think it's really cool that you're talking about, like, your own history and your own story. So one of the questions that I want to pose to you is, what do you think that the city of Salinas could be doing to just be able to encourage more art? Or even, like, if the city of Salinas isn't doing it, what is Bactune 12 doing it to fill that gap, that need for our people, for the art and for theater and specifically?
The city of Salinas can recognize that what they've been doing since the city of Salinas became the city of Salinas, which I think was 152 years ago, according to whatever like, I don't know, marker you're using. I think Council Member McShane was attempted to do like a big celebration, but it's, you know, basically it's 150 years, right? Like, and we're still having these same problems, right? And we're still kind of keep within the a mind frame of what we do, this culture, that this Salinas culture, the Salinas work culture that you know, has contributed so much to the prison industry, you know. So much to the ag industry, obviously, but to the prison industry, and you know, we could see how much, and it's represented in the way that our city budget is structured. The majority of our budget, the majority of our city budget goes to law enforcement, and that's a reflection of our city leaders. So what can they do? You know, it's like, really take a real good, close, hard look at what we've been doing all this time, and understanding that the definition of insanity is repeating the same thing and expecting different results, you know? So that's what this is. I feel and believe. I'm sure there's probably a lot of your listeners are probably thinking, well, you know, it's probably this and that too. But, you know, bottom line, it's crazy that we would listen and follow a racist, like, structural system that we haven't. None of us has ever been to the table of that, you know, the decision-making process, you know. You know, a lot of rich, white, powerful men had decided what is best for, you know, all the black and brown kids, you know, all these black and brown bodies that put in all the work in this, that do the hard work, right? And so, City of Salinas can do that, right? Kind of just take a deep reflection, and I don't think it should take too long, too. I think you could take probably maybe a day or maybe a weekend. I mean, you want to unpack all of that, take as much as you can, but understand that none of it has worked, you know? What is Boxing 12 doing? You know, we're really like, you know, we realized it the other day, you know, we got a sound system, we got a microphone, you know, we've done facilitation. And so, and there's like a couple of things that we're doing, but in terms of the on the ground, like, movement work, we're allowing our services to like, you know, for folks who are, you know, structuring events, you know, actions, you know, in the area. You need like sound systems, y'all. Like, you need like somebody to help kind of like, you know, bring in or facilitate. And I'm not saying like be the face or be the host. I'm not saying any of that. I'm saying, like, what do you need us? What can we do to help your voice be heard? You know what I mean? And then bring in all the rest of the voices, because that's, and it, you know, what is the ultimate message? You know, the Black Lives Matter movement, the funding, the redirecting of funds, you know, of our city budget funds, you know, the health and safety of our farm workers, of our raza out here. Like, you know, there's more, right? You know, and the struggle for K through 12 ethnic studies. San Jose, the school district of San Jose, I just heard Alum Rock Union School District just, like, I think was passed, you know, they just passed ethnic studies K through 8, kinder through 8. Wow, right? Like, wow. You know, for all of y'all, like,
and Arturo lives in San Jose right now, so he can attest for that.
Yeah, I was gonna say that happened just last night. We had the board meeting just last night, and it was something that's been pushed for a long time now, ¿verdad? And I think what really pushed that was the voice of our own communities, right? They all were there for ¿cómo se llama la palabra? Where you public comment, right? They're there for public comment. They really push for it, and they're also pushing for the next board meeting to have in the agenda the, you know, the funding of the SROs within the schools, right? And so there's a lot of things that we're trying to reallocate the funding, right? Make sure that it's there, you know, and better, put it into better use, correct? You know? And so it's for me, like, you know, what comes to my mind también is like, you know, Xago, you mentioned raspuachismo, right? And that's a beautiful thing within our cultura, right? That has allowed us to persevere so much, you know, it allowed us to do a lot with what we got, you know, and oftentimes we don't got too much, right? But también just imagining, like, if we had all the funding that, you know, others were getting, right? What's like the things that we could do, right? What's the things that y'all are capable of doing, like, with unlimited funding, right? I know, like, a lot of times y'all go to, like, the communities, you know, community parks, community residential areas, making sure that palabra reaches appropriate audiences. So what else do you envision if you had all the funding that was necessary to do what your vision is?
If I had all the funding, or what? Like, if I had all the funding,
yep.
If I had all the funding, we make sure that all of our neighbors right now would be just as easy as it was for us to get on this Zoom call, that the doñas and the los dons, like, you know, and their kids, you know, and all our folks that are working out in the fields, that it could be just as easy for them. You get what I'm saying? Like, making sure that we got some, like, mobile Wi-Fi system that they have. It's just as easy. It should just be just as easy for them to get on as it is for us. All right. And yeah, we pay for it, whatever. Okay. If they can't afford it, let's make it happen, right? Let's do our best to bring these Wi-Fi type of towers, right? If I had the funding, bro, because how am I going to build my audience, you know, without them not being there, bro? Like, how am I going to do that, dog? Like, we got to go. Luis Valdez, el maestro Valdez said if the people can't go to the theater got to go to the people, bro. All right? Like, that's just it. You know what I'm saying? You know, and a lot of the ideas of people having to like have to show up, you know, on a fucking 4:30. I'm sorry, at 4:30 at City Hall, right? At these meetings, right, to participate. You know, it's like what to show up to that. But can we show up virtually? Are there ways to access that? I believe so. We all believe so. We're on it right now, right? So if I had the funding, we'd be able to go out to folks, knock on the doors, right? Keep our social distance. Let them know, like, hey, boom. You know, ¿cuántos de ustedes tienen manera de llegar, alcanzar Wi-Fi, right? Like, el internet, right? Like, a participar en estos conversaciones por Zoom, right? You know, like, how many of that, bro? Like, how many of that? I mean, just looking at 93905 alone, bro. Like, the most, like, just marginalized, right? In terms of, like, participation of our gente, bro. Like, how, you know, and the levels of participation that we can actually, you know, that we can actually apply, right? You know, our undocumented folks. Because we're undocumented, you know, maybe if I had all the funding in the world, maybe I'd figured out a way to get our undocumented folks' voices heard. You get what I'm saying? Like, without having to, like, you know, I mean, without having to worry about them, you know, without putting them on blast, or, you know what I mean? Making that a restriction. You know what I'm saying? And if not in the, for elections, you know, federal, state, county, city elections, then maybe for the board, maybe for the school board, someplace where they're going to be able to participate, man. That's, if I had the funding, dog, like, yeah, that's, you know, you look around like, damn, like, yeah, you know, let's train a whole bunch of, like, folks to be able to go out and, like, look, this is your Wi-Fi tower. It's located over here, la esquina de acá, right? Behind, you know, atrás acá, la casa de quién sabe quién, right? Here's your tablet, or here's your iPad, or, you know, something with a keyboard that's going to allow you to, you know, to access. Here's a link, right? Boom, here's a link. So that the doñas, they can easily learn how to do it. And I'm not just talking about the you know, our elders in the family. I'm talking about everybody in the family, you know.
I would say that's all of the points that you're making, Xago, are really, really key, because I think accessibility sometimes keeps our people from definitely being involved and being able to create that change. Even I can tell you that in Hayward, it is so fucking hard, and you can express yourself. Feel free to express yourself however you feel like you need to, but it's so goddamn hard to even find a link for, like, on Monday there was like a town hall for, like, policing with the police chief, mayor, and the city manager, and it was, like, so hard for even all of us tech people to figure out, like, what is the link, get the link, share the link. Like, it was just this whole thing. And so it makes it so hard if you're thinking about, like, the elders, right, that maybe have even the language barrier. Like, it's hard, you know, for people to get connected. And even what you were saying in general, it just reminded me of Nas's, like, if I ruled the world, right? Just like being able to figure out, like, how do we find ways to be able to take control of that narrative and be able to connect with our people in very meaningful ways. Pero con eso, I want to ask you, you know, there's been a lot of movement in Salinas regarding, you know, just following the murder of Mr. George Floyd, right? And so how do you feel like the police brutality nationwide, how does that connect in Salinas, specifically, for example, the death of Brenda Mendoza by Salinas PD?
I mean, it's like, look, like, we ain't, none of us is gonna matter until Black Lives Matter, you know? Like, it's just basically these are the feelings that come up for me. And the fact that, like, what is this moment? How can this moment allow us to apply that attention and care that these policies need. That kind of attention and care, man. It needs attention and care, you know, around how law enforcement is going to engage our citizens, our neighbors, who, you know, every one of our folks, every one of those 7 folks, and I don't have the list of everybody, every name. I know, I think I'm missing like 2 names. But in the last 6 years, you know, from 2014 to now, the 7 folks who were killed by police officers were having a really bad day, man. They were just having a really bad day, you know? And I know every one of them knew somebody. There was probably somebody that could really talk to them. You get what I'm saying? Like, that they would be listened to, right? I mean, look at that video. Look at that video of the Brenda Mendoza video on the California newspaper website. I'm actually surprised that it's still on. If anybody can see it, like, maybe you should upload it and you know, before it's taken down, because it's a pretty revealing video of how, like, there was one negotiator. He was obviously bilingual, Mexicano, I believe. He was actually from here, from Salinas. And I forgot his name. He grew up here. And then there were 3 other officers who were posted up. I'm just kind of breaking down. And I'm sorry if everybody's already heard this already, but and go to I think Brenda Rodriguez Mendoza, the Californian, March 1st, 2019. Anyways, the guys with the guns were 2 white dudes and 1 Filipino. And so I'm like thinking, like, wow, really? Wow. This young woman, 20 years old, mother of a 6-week-old child, 6-week-old baby, is approached by 4 men. You know, she's 20 years old, and these 4 men, right? She doesn't know any of them. She doesn't feel. I mean, what do you? How safe do you think she feels? Right? Like, these are the kind of questions that kind of come to mind. And I'm sure there are a lot of people. Maybe there's some people on this call probably think, well, I saw the video and they were completely in the right. Nah, I don't think so. How do we know that, man? Like, we don't, you know, for them to like fire on her. She's in an SUV, a broken down SUV, and she had a BB gun. So I'm like trying to think, like, oh, were they afraid for their life because they were obviously shielded? I want to believe, right? You could see it on video. Were they afraid for her life or were they afraid for the lives around others? Because if they were afraid for the lives around others, I'm like, really? Yeah, it was a BB gun, and maybe in their mind they probably thought it was a lethal, you know, explosive weapon. It just looks like there was nobody else around. It looked like it was safe enough. All right. Again, I wasn't there, but I know from what I've seen that did not look right. You know, it's not right. And we need the city to be bold. We need these leaders to be bold. We need, like, these people who have committed to protecting us to know more about us. Do you get what I'm saying? Like, why am I going to expect somebody who comes to my neighborhood, because I live like 3 blocks away from where she was killed. I remember having to go around. I didn't even know what was going on. And I had to go around to get home, right? It was like blocked off. It's my home, right? But how many from our home, how many from our neighbors, how many in our neighborhood could have, like, had that voice? I swear to God, I believe somebody would have came with that voice, that reassuring voice, and be able to tell the young lady what she needed to hear, to know that she wasn't alone, that she was going to be supported, that she was going to be helped, because this young woman had survived so much, gone through so much trauma already. She had a history. But you're going to send, like, a guy who has, yeah, you probably send one dude who does all the translating, but he apparently didn't have any power over these guys. If you could tell, he's not one of the shooters.
Yeah.
He's having a conversation. He's trying to have a conversation. And here are these other three who already made up their mind, you know, hey, if she shows her gun, then we're going to blast.
Yeah, it was very, it's, if you haven't seen the video, it's very, very alarming because it was just there's alternatives to that. You know, no, I don't know if any of these officers are trained mental health professionals, and they probably aren't, because that's not, I don't know if that's in their job description. And there could have been someone that was close to her that was called in, hey, let me talk you down. There's a whole process of like talking someone down and a training of like being able to talk someone down from a mental health crisis. But on that topic of what you were saying, you know, recently there was a resolution passed by the Monterey County Board of Supervisors condemning the murder of Mr. George Floyd, saying that the 4 officers involved need to be fully, you know, charged, sentenced, convicted, right, to the full extent of the law. And so if they're saying that about the 4 officers that were involved with Mr. George Floyd's murder, how do you think that connects, or what message do you think that sends about the deaths that have happened here in Monterey County of officers, any officer that kills someone to be charged at the full extent of the law?
My whole thing, this is an opportunity for our leaders, for our county leaders, to be able to take a critical look at how this judgment, how all of this was, whatever we're still holding on for the last 6 years, it's going to require that reevaluation, and not from like one so-called expert that doesn't live here. Do you get what I'm saying? Like, we need to determine what that is as a community. With them, man, they need to hear that. And I don't know. It looks like you know, they're going to come up with these excuses. Well, it looked like everybody on Facebook said that they were in agreement with all of us, right? It's like all y'all on Facebook, all the people who love the SPD on Facebook, right? It's like, or what about the voices who are not counted for, right? Voices who don't have a relationship with our systems people because they're monolingual Spanish speakers, or they're monolingual native Mexican speakers. You know, it just requires more work, guys. This is, again, guys, when I say guys, I mean like these cities, back to the city leaders, you know. And it feels like when you're around a lot of these city folk, these representatives or their staff members, it's like, oh my God, it's like this, it's like so much work. It feels like so much work, like we're putting them out, like making it so difficult for them. But it's not rocket science, man. We're doing this out of not out of like some type of political strategy, man. We're doing this out of love. We're doing this out of love for our neighbors. So, yeah, bold action. I mean, how, you know, they look at every one of these. Look at everyone and take another good close look at how all this went down. Who was involved? You know. And how, you know, did we move forward? No, we haven't, man. So all this, George Floyd just brought up a lot of like, it brought up a lot of like trauma for us. And I'll say one thing, it made it, and I you know, I was guilty. I don't say guilty of this, but it was a reminder how less our lives mattered because Black lives were not mattering to the architects or to those who are trying to facilitate the power structures, right? For these legislative bodies, right? We're not going to matter until Black lives matter, man. And that's what came up, you know. And so, you know,
myself on that topic, and maybe Arturo has more to add to this, and I could pass it on to him for a follow-up question. But for you, you know, what does it mean to deconstruct anti-Blackness within the Mexican community, within the brown community? Because there's a lot of work there that needs to happen as well.
For me, I mean, we can go back. It's got to start from the history, right? Like, from the colonization of our lands. You know, let's go back to Yanga. You know, a resistance leader. He was of royalty, and he was captured and enslaved I believe some part of Western Africa, and I think maybe a lot of y'all already know this already, right? But brought to Mexico, like many other slaves. At one point there, I think there were maybe like, and maybe somebody out there can correct me if I'm wrong, but they were like, the population around that time was like, of those who came ashore were like 30 slaves per one Spaniard, I believe was the proportion or the ratio. So, you know, as at that point, you know, this man who came from royalty was captured, enslaved, and, you know, brought to this hemisphere, and experienced what had he experienced to get into a place of you know, understanding like what can be done, building his relationships with not just those who were his brothers and sisters who were enslaved, but also with the native folks who were going through the brutal colonization at the time, right? And understanding like, oh wow, this alliance right here, what can be done with this alliance right here, turned into the strongest alliance. Like it was able to crush the Spanish that force, and it's so much so that they had to negotiate with him. Like, look, if we'll just you know, okay, cool. They were like, all right, okay, what do you want? What do you want? You know, they started negotiating and so forth. Yeah, that was one victory that we can all just point to, and that was the start. That's the intersection. Okay, was it enough? Obviously not. Right? Yanga. Was it enough to? No, man. I mean, there was just more and more colonists that were able to just come in and just overwhelmingly like continue their colonization. But that being the first uprising, first successful, I would say not successful, or the first one on record. I won't say the first uprising. Can't say the first uprising. Can't say the first successful one either. But one that was put on record. And I believe the year was Yanga Mexico. I think it happened in was it 1545? No, the 15. I'm sorry, I'm looking for the 1609. There was it 1526? There was definitely, I'm so sorry, y'all.
No,
Like,
you're good. But I think what you're making a good point in terms of there was Black folks that were brought through, for example, the port of Veracruz, and there's a lot of Black folks, Black Mexicans, and for a long time they weren't even counted in the census in Mexico. It wasn't until 2014, I believe, that they changed 2015 that they started actually counting Black Mexicans, right? And so it's just
there's 5 years ago, guys.
There's just this whole history of like, damn, dude, like there's a lot of power in Black and brown unity, and like, why not extend yourself to create yourself into that bridge? Pero con eso I'll pass it on to
1570 was the year. 1570.
Yeah, talking about like recent movimientos, right? Like ahorita como we have a lot of protests, we have a lot of engagement of like, you know, new activists, people that are new to like, you know, this kind of realms, right? There's a lot of movimiento that we have, a lot of momentum that we're building because of everybody's, you know, trying to find ways on how to be in solidarity with one another. And I think, you know, Chavos, since you've been in this game for a cool minute now, you have a lot of expertise within activism, making sure that our stories are, you know, highlighted y todo eso. What would be some advice, or what would be some ways that some young activists or some new activists could have, you know, from you?
Check out the book from Luis Valdez, Actos. The short, let me get the exact name. I'm looking it up right now. It's from Luis Valdez, Actos. It was a collection of the Actos work that he had put together title page cover. And oh yeah, early works. Luis Valdez, early works. Actos, Bernabé, Pensamiento Serpentino. In that book, they break down the actos. It's just a collection of the actos, the early works, right? From back in the day, 50 years ago, actually, circa 50 years ago, from 1965 to 1971. And 65 to 71. Las dos caras del patroncito, Two Faces of the Boss, quinta temporada, the fifth season, Los Vendidos, the Sellouts, La Conquista de México, Conquest of Mexico, right? No Saco Nada de la Escuela, and that's called I Don't Get Anything Out of School. The Militants, Huelguistas, the Strikers, Vietnam Campesino, Vietnam Farm Worker, I think, but Vietnam Campesino is what they call it. I'm just naming the name of the actos, the standards, right? And then Soldado Raso, right? All of, Dos Caras was a two-person play, the patron and the campesino worker. The Quinta Temporada was a play about, the fifth season being that cruel, harsh season, the 4 seasons. The winter season is the one season that kind of like everybody gets, it kind of dreads because there's no work around those winter seasons. So they call it the Quinta Temporada, being the season of justice, or a season of change. The Conquest of Mexico, it's actually the Conquest of Mexico, the La Conquista de Mexico is actually a puppet show. It's kind of in the spirit of Avenue Q, if anybody knows what I'm talking about. Avenue Q, where a lot of like raunchy type of like puppets, or it was like a Broadway play, big success. Anyways, it's kind of like that, a Chicano version of that, but way before that, because La Conquista de Mexico was presented in 1968. I Don't Get Anything Out of the School, No Saco Nada de la Escuela, about our school system, 1969. Just how it's this machine to acculturate raza, right? The Militants was actually a self, satirizing the self, satirizing the over militancy, or the buffoonery of the militancy, where we see like who's more Chicano kind of thing. Huelguistas, it's the Huelguistas piece is the shortest acto of them all. The Strikers, or the Huelguistas, the Strikers. And they have in it the Campesino Mexicano, Campesino Filipino, Campesino Tejano, Campesino Casada, Campesino Viejita, Campesino Coyote, Ranchero, like all of these different voices, the kind of showing the diversity of the Campesino in 1970. And then the Vietnam Campesino, acto was basically about like and it's interesting because they have a character named Butt Anglo, which is named after Bud Anglo, right? Which is, our lettuce, the representative of the lettuce, right? Well, TNA now, but we all know, those who know Bud of California, that's who inspired this character, Bud Anglo, in this acto named Vietnam Campesino. And they're making a connection between those brown folks, our brown folks who were picking in the fields back then, to the brown folks who were picking in the fields of Vietnam, tying the ag industry into the military industrial complex. Luego you got the Soldado Raso, which was born out of the Chicano moratorium, which happened in 1970. And this was an acto that they were able to develop, and it was probably their more serious one. It took more theatrical tones, meaning like just like the more traditional type of theatrical approach, but it was for, again, it was like a very dramatic piece, but it was like set up as an acto, right? Meaning like it was short and it was presented and offered to communities as such. Anyways, I just broke all that down. And I mean, I didn't break that down, but I'm just listed what happened. And there's 5 points. Okay, so just bear with me. 5 points of the acto. 5 points of the acto, right? So what I'm saying here is check out that book, Early Works, Actos, Bernabé, and Pensamiento Serpentino. And in there, they're talking about the 5 points of an acto, which is 1, inspire the audience to social action. 2, illuminate specific points about social problems. 3, satirize the opposition. 4, show or hint at a solution. And 5, express what people are feeling. So these are the 5 points, and they may not go in that order. You can put them up in any order, you know. But it's like these short actos, these short stories can be a weapon, because when these stories are heard and we know what the power of the story is, I know y'all know what the power of the story is. It's transformative. It's transformative when it's presented. It comes from a place of truth. So when we watch TV or we watch films or whatever, it's entertainment, entretenernos, para entretenernos, right? And entretener is just to hold our attention, right? The actors are about action, you know, and that's where we take our cue from. These are our marching orders, and right now is what we're committed to doing this in this struggle, this time in history.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that, Xago. And for you, you're an artist, you're an educator, you're the artistic director at Bakhtun 12. So if you can tell us, you know, what were the conditions that were in place that made y'all say, we need to come together and form Bakhtun 12? And also, what can we expect from Bakhtun 12 in the coming years?
It was the mid-90s, y'all. It was 1997 when the compadre Rafael Garcia, he noticed, like, oh man, I got homies that are down for teatro. I got homies that are down for hip hop, you know, poets. I got musicos, right? All the homies are all, most of them, majority of us, all from the 93905. Most of us all went to the Al Sal Union School District schools, you know, Al Sal High, most of us. And there was a couple of other brothers and sisters that joined us, or were, you know, from right just outside of the neighborhood. And, you know, think about this, guys. This is like, you know, the 90s, there's a lot happening. I mean, there's always a lot happening. But the 90s were the crime bill. President Clinton had introduced the crime bill in 1994. And you know, he took the cue from California, 3 strikes, you're out. And he put that in that crime bill, guys. Boom. He also put a whole bunch of other monies to make sure that he could militarize our Salinas, our police forces, to make super predators heal, right? And have them come to heal. I forgot how she said that, but, you know, Hillary Clinton, we got to make these super predators come to heal, which is basically talking about the crazy ass youngsters that we all grew up with in the 90s that just didn't give a fuck, you know? And yeah, the levels of danger, it was a dangerous time. But it felt like for us, you know, it was like, okay, if this is crazy, if it feels unsafe, let's just come with our true selves, you know, and let's do teatro for our homies, right? Let's set up, let's do a party, you know, and you'd find us at like backyard boogie woogies, you know what I mean? Just like doing teatro. Oh, they turn off the music, and then we come out, we do our thing, you know, and we do our best to go for the laughs. We do our best to make these points around, you know, these systems of oppression. We make these points of the value of coming together, you know, to make the points around our history, you know. And again, we were doing this for our friends, you know. We were doing this, you know, for our community, trying to do our best to do that, you know. And it'd be crazy because, you know, you'd have a North Sider on one side, you have a South Sider on the other. And this is the 90s, y'all. Like, it was like anything could happen, you know. And so for us to be in those spaces and seeing everybody laugh, you know, for whatever jokes, or see those moments of like, I don't want to say aha moments, but of those moments of connection, of reflection, you know, that all of a sudden it's like, I'm not the only one who's experienced this trauma of systemic racism that comes in all these different forms. I'm not saying that that's what people think, but it's like, oh yeah, you were fucked over like that, so was I, basically, you know. So that was the 90s. That's how we came together. We were really inspired, and I got obviously inspired by Teatro Campesino, but really inspired by the Ejército Zapatista Liberación Nacional, the Zapatista Army, that basically when they came out, they busted out. For me, it was like 1994, January 1st, to see them all kind of come down from the hills of the jungles of the Lacandon jungle. And that to me was like, oh shit, the revolution's on now. You know, for me, that was like, okay, it's a green light, you know, and then I kind of walk out and you like look around and you're like, oh shit, like, I guess there's only a few crazy Chicanos that I want to get on this train, which is cool, you know, but you're thinking, okay, well, somehow everybody's going to get on this train at some point. Really? No? I thought you said you were down for the revolution. You know, this is what was going through my mind, you know, but I wasn't going to like allow that to hold us, slow us down, you know. I mean, at least in my mind, like I couldn't, everybody, you start realizing where everyone is at, you know, and everybody, like, you start understanding, like, not you don't realize where everyone is at, but you realize that everybody's different. You know, you're growing up in a movement.
Almost like there's different levels to it. There's different levels of engagement, different gifts that people bring to the movement. Like, for example, Arturo being an artist, like being a muralist and doing, you know, just like what he does in terms of his podcast. And for yourself, you know, also being an artist. And there's like different angles of which you can be a part of the movement. But yeah, I just wanted to reflect on that much. Yeah.
Thank you. And just to kind of come back to, again, like, there was the hip hop too. And then there was, you know, like everybody, a lot of us give credit to Zach de la Rocha from Rage Against the Machine. You know, it was that, you know, I was into rock and roll, a lot of rock and roll. I grew up listening to a lot of white boy rock, you know. But then rock en español started coming out, and you started coming to those concerts. So I realized, oh wow, Raza's like really getting down with these mosh pits, and they're more love and there's more joy in this mosh pit than this mosh pit full of crackers over here. Do you get what I'm saying? Like this violent mosh pit full of crackers, and luego, you know, here's this love, like just energetic, you know, bola de raza, like moshing, right? Zach de la Rocha and Rage Against the Machine was like, dude, pushing that to another point. And if you look back, you know, De La Rocha, Zach De La Rocha, he put a lot of money back into the Zapatista movement, you know, off of what he had made, or what, yeah, he had contributed so much, he had participated so much, and a lot of that had influenced his work. And for us, like that was our soundtrack. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Well, real quick, I know you mentioned a couple people in this podcast right now. You know, you mentioned Luis Valdez, you know, Rage Against Machine, and other folks around you know, that made a difference in your life or inspired you or somehow, you know, had an impact on you, right? And I was wondering, how would you want others to, you know, think about you in the future? Well, how would you want people to know who Xago was?
I mean, you know that I'm just from the east side of Salinas, you know what I mean? It's all you gotta know, you know what I'm saying? But, you know, I'm just from here, bro, you know? It was cool, you know, fuck, man, you know, me and my wife were able to find really thank Creator for allowing us to come back, you know? Be able to find a place here. You know, back where I, you know, was able to grow up, been back here for 2 years now. You know, it would almost feel like a dream, you know, to kind of be back here. It's kind of, you know, like, is this real, you know? And yeah, we're already going to have 2 years back here, and it feels like more real than ever. And, you know, things happen for reasons, right? And so, yeah, you just want to know me, man. I mean, if that's what you want to do, you know, like, this is just the east side, eh? And like, you know, I'm trying to find out more history about our neighborhood, you know, more history about the 93905. You know, I would love to see the criminal record of the 93905, you know what I mean? Like how many, going back to the beginning of the 93905, there was record of, you know, incidents, right? I want to see that, you know what I mean? I want to see just how far has it gone back? You know, can we pull that? Can we do that research? Need to know that. And then anything else that has been documented about this land, because it's had a Mexican identity on the surface, and it's had a Spanish identity on the surface, but underneath is our native indigenous identity of the Esalen, and that's underneath. That doesn't, you know, it's like that's here, you know, and so. There's a lot of that work that we have to put in, you know, and a lot of time, you know, to do it right.
And I appreciate you también. I think you're like the perfect example of someone that really connected within their own community and actually doing the work, being grounded and never forgetting where you're from.
Thank you so much, Chago, for your time and for just sharing your wisdom with us, right? Especially being someone from the east side of Salinas, that oftentimes is a space that it's not necessarily respected. Like if we look at the budget, if we look at the city and how they act, like they're not necessarily being respected. And so con eso, I just want to invite people to the Salinas City Council meeting on Tuesday, June 23rd. And so please email your city council members, call, show up. We're going to be posting in the description and on our Instagram and our social medias, information of how to get yourself involved. And Chago, if you had any note of, because they're going to be voting on the budget. So it's if there's any final note that you have for people that want to get engaged, because there has been a lot of movement in Salinas, especially following Mr. George Floyd's murder, of wanting to get involved. But at the same time, we have to be mindful of they're voting on the budget. We have to also, it's not only about marching and protesting, it's also about holding your city council members, elected officials accountable for how they vote and what they vote for, right? And so is there any final note that you have regarding the city council meeting that's coming up, the vote on the budget? You've already kind of mentioned, so much of the money that's going towards police, it's 45% of the budget. It's $52 million, right? And so if only 4 million or 3.5% is allocated to community, then I guess what is your commentary on that?
My commentary on that is you gotta find out what who your council member representative is. And right now, it's just time to just be I'm going to just bug you. I'm going to call you. I'm going to leave all kinds of message. I'm going to send all kinds of emails, and if you know where they roll, it wouldn't hurt to just accidentally bump into them, and say, what's up, right? Hey, you rep me? Hey, you know what I mean? What would be best if you did what you would do, bro? And it's hard, dude. It's hard. Because none of those members don't get paid, you know what I mean? They don't get paid, and it's kind of you look at San Jose, those council members, they get paid, right? So it's I don't know, it's maybe defund the police and redirect some of those funds to these guys over here, so maybe they'd be down to do something different, if that's what it takes, and I'm not the one, don't. You know what I mean? Somebody gonna come on up and say oh, Chago says pay these guys. You know what I mean? They're gonna put it up all over social media. I ain't saying that. I'm saying that maybe if there was a pay scale, maybe we didn't have to pay our cops so much, and we could start paying our city leaders enough to start doing a better job. Or not a better job. I won't say a better job. Start providing them with resources to expand their capacity. That's basically it, because I don't know what it's like to be in their shoes. I don't know what they're carrying. I don't know what kind of health conditions they're going through. I don't know what they grew up doing or how they grew up believing. We don't know them, bro. Fully know them, Yeah, Tony Barrera will tell you hey, whatever the people want, I'm going to do it, and that's cool. I want to remember that. So those who live in Tony Barrera's District 2, you got to tell them what you want, y'all, I know Scott Davis, he's been representing, and I'm much respect to dude. Steve McShane, he's always there with the selfies, and that's real interesting. I'd like to see, what happens if he's able to really take in the messaging, to use your heart and not your mind, not your logical mind or whatever, or allowing the so-called dominant narrative, state-controlled narrative, to not state controlled. I'm not gonna say state controlled. The corporate controlled narrative of the law enforcement industry. All right, make decisions with your heart, city leaders. Okay, you can trust it. I think you can trust us. I think these folks can probably trust us, right? They want our trust, but do they trust us?
As a final piece for you, Chago, can you please finish this sentence? Public safety means ...
Public safety means participation. It means participation, Then that's it. I just emailed you both the council map district. So, you know, hey, be like, hey, you know what neighborhood you live in? 6 districts, right? So public safety means, right? Participation, y'all.
Órale, pues con eso, muchas gracias, Xago, for your time. You know, again, we're wanting to highlight people like you, people from Salinas, people from East Salinas, people that look like us, that the youth can resonate, that the community can resonate with, right? And so we just thank you for your time and your teachings. And this was a really great conversation. And again, your call to action, if you're watching, your call to action is to participation, like Xago said, participation, you know, figure out who's your council member, who do you need to bug, tell them what you want. Like if there's something that you want on the budget that you feel like there should be more after school programs, more housing, more protection for seniors, all of that is within your purview and your right as a citizen, as a person, as a human living in Salinas to hit up your council members. And so thank you, Xago, con eso. And then if you wanted to say
one more thing, Scott Davis, District 1, Tony Barrera, District 2, Steve McShane, District 3, Gloria de la Rosa, District 4, Christine Cromines, District 5, and I don't even know if I want to say his name though, but District 6, yeah, that dude right over there. So that's it.
We'll be sharing the district's map on our social media so that folks start getting an idea if you don't already know. So con eso, Arturo, was there any other final thoughts?
No, muchas gracias. The new episode will come out in 2 weeks. So be tuned for new content every 2 weeks. And also be in tune to our Instagram just to make sure that y'all are not missing out on the episodes to come. So muchas gracias for everybody tuning in.
All right, folks. Peace out. Thank y'all for watching.
All my relations, y'all.